If I had to describe the Aprilia Tuono 660, I'd say it's a fiery hot Italian that you'd happily show off to your mates, but you're probably not going to take it home to meet mum and dad. The Aprilia Tuono 660 has the same engine and chassis as the RS 660, although it's been detuned to a more than adequate 95 horsepower, so it's basically a middleweight sports bike without clip-ons. It has a light dual beam alloy frame and the subframe is removable. The engine is a liquid-cooled 659cc parallel twin with peak torque of 67 Newton meters at 8,500 RPM. It's also got an underslung 2-into-1 exhaust. It's got a 6-speed gearbox with the optional quick shifter, and the quick shifter was fitted on the model that I had. In terms of suspension, we have Kayaba 41mm upside down forks that are adjustable for rebound and preload with 110mm of travel, and a single rear shock that is adjustable for rebound and preload with 130mm of travel. The front brakes are excellent. They are a 320mm disc with a Brembo radial mounted 4-piston caliper. On the rear, there's a 220mm disc with a 2-piston caliper. It has 17-inch rims, weighs 185 kilos, has a 15-litre fuel tank and a seat height of 820mm. When we talk about electronics, well, it's got the lot. A TFT, traction control, ABS, wheelie control, engine braking, cruise control, 5 rider modes, an espresso machine and a gelato maker. Impressive. There are some great deals on pricing at the moment. The retail is $20,430, but I've seen a few deals pop up on social media pricing the Tuono 660 well under that. The absolute stars of this bike are the engine, which has a great sound for a parallel twin. It's fiery and quirky and has heaps of character, along with the gearbox and the quick shifter. It's got a really usable amount of power for road use, but I reckon you could have some serious fun on this bike on the track. The build quality is excellent, the paintwork is gorgeous, the switchgear is all nice and the TFT is very clear and looks brilliant. The headlight and the front end of the bike look great in my opinion. All up, it's a really good looking bike that does look small, but it doesn't feel small when you're on it. In terms of rider modes, I didn't play with them too much because the dynamic mode was wonderful pretty much everywhere I rode, with possibly the exception of when I got stuck in traffic. I did put it in commute mode a couple of times when I remembered, but for most of the time I stayed in dynamic mode and mostly it worked just fine. I really like the wide handlebars on the Tuono 660. They were brilliant for handling and counter steering, and the quick shifter was brilliant also. The bike felt really light and easy to ride, and it was surprisingly comfortable for long rides. So much more comfortable than I thought it would be, and that screen works really well in deflecting the wind. The suspension felt a little soft, but it was comfy without losing too much shape at speed. Now the tyres on this bike were Rosso Corsa 2s and they get a big tick from me. I don't think I've ever ridden on better tyres on dry roads. Not sure how they'd go in the wet, but on a good road they were seriously confidence inspiring. The back brake felt a little wooden, but the front brake was excellent with heaps of bite, but it did take a while to get used to considering I'd just jumped off a Vespa. It's not perfect, and there were a few things that I didn't like. The fueling was a bit twitchy between 3,000 and 5,000 RPM in dynamic mode, although I didn't notice this when I had it in commute mode. I'm not a massive fan of switching between rider modes, so I end up just basically leaving it in one mode. It's a pricey bike, and you'd expect the quick shifter and the IMU to be standard, but they're an option. But the bike I had did have the quick shifter fitted, but not the IMU. I asked the importers about this and why it was not fitted, and they basically said it was due to supply shortages, which I suppose in the current climate is to be expected. Whilst we're talking about electronics, although they are super customizable, it was a bit daunting for someone like me who struggles to even use an iPhone. And this was probably the main reason I just left it in dynamic mode. The gearbox was superb, but on more than one occasion, I did find it very hard to get the bike into neutral. Look, it's not a massive issue, but it was just a bit fiddly. I think in general, the colourways are brilliant. So much more interesting than the colourways from other manufacturers, although I would have loved to have seen the acid gold version with black wheels instead of the red ones. Apart from that, it's a bit thirsty and it does get a bit hot when you're not moving, so I'm not sure how it would go in an Australian summer, but on a brisk autumn day in the Blue Mountains, the heat from the engine was quite pleasant. Well, this one for me, it gets a 9. I absolutely loved it for a few reasons. The engine is great and it sounds awesome, but it's also just a bit different. You don't see too many of them on the road. The electronics are great, but you still know you're on a motorcycle because it's still got a bit of raw aggression, and being only a 660, it has a really usable amount of power. Oh Lord, here we go again. I just dropped two, drop two, drop two, drop. Oh Lord, here we go again. I just dropped 2 tabs and I lost my friends. Well, the Aprilia Tuono is the kind of bike that loves sweeping roads. Not the greatest commuter because of that fueling, so probably not ideal if you do lots of city riding. It was great on a ride up through Yarramundi and onto Katoomba to visit Dave on the Soul Side of Town Cafe. From there, it was out to Mount Victoria and back the Bellsline Road. And this is where the bike was really at home. Big, sweeping curves. The Bellsline is a great road if you're in and around Sydney, with plenty of little cafes and stops along the way. So I'm really keen to have a ride on the Tuono 660's big brother, the V4, because that bike looks like a beast. Maybe too much bike for me, but I'm keen to have a crack anyway. So the Tuono 660, it's a great option if you're after a mid-capacity naked that's just a bit different. It's got a superb engine and gearbox, great handling, and I think Aprilia describe it best when they say it's as powerful as thunder and as light as a cloud. I think if you're looking for a bike that's a bit exotic but don't need the power of the V4, then the Tuono 660 might just be the one. I certainly wouldn't rule one out for myself at some point in the future. Let me know what you think of the Aprilia Tuono 660. Is there a better mid-capacity naked out there? Would you consider buying one? And what do you think of those red wheels? If there's a bike that you'd like to see me review, let me know in the comments below. Okay, now back to the giveaway of one of our brand new t-shirts that we'll be launching along with our online store soon. Tegan and I have been working with a great mate who's a local artist to come up with some pretty cool designs. So make sure you go and check out Peter Sawdust on Instagram. And while you're there, follow us on Instagram and on Facebook also. To win this cool Grin Factor t-shirt, all you need to do is guess what bike I've added to the collection. I've dropped some clues over the last few weeks, so you'll have to check out those videos to hear the previous clues. The final clue in the giveaway is that my new bike is not a Honda CB, it's not a Norton 650, and it's not a BMW R69S, but it is a little bit of each. So make sure you have subscribed to the channel and add a comment with your guess of what you think my new bike is. Now, someone has guessed the brand of the bike, but not the exact model. If we get a correct guess this week, then I'll announce the winner in next week's video. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy your next Pi run.